Is everyone lying about what it feels like to be in love? When people in songs or movies wax poetical about romance, are they exaggerating? Does it really blaze like a wildfire? Does it fill you like finding your other half? Is it even really like falling, weightless and out of control and scary? Do any of those metaphors reflect a genuine reality? Or are they building on 1,000 years of culture that sings about romance like the consummation of existence? Basically, I'm asking, when the Bee Gees said in their hit 1977 single, How Deep Is Your Love? I know your eyes in the morning sun. I feel you touch me in the pouring rain. Were they being for real? Were they being serious? Is that what it feels like? Or are we selling ourselves a fantasy? I wouldn't know. I'm almost 24 and I've never even held hands romantically. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're wondering why I would choose to come on the internet and in the first 30 seconds of my video announce to the world that I'm a massive virgin. When the real question you should be asking is why you assume I should be embarrassed about that. Which, genuinely, I'm asking. Why do we think it's embarrassing if an adult doesn't have romantic experience? Like, I actually want you to take a second to think about that. Like, listen, I know love itself is real. I feel it every day in the way my dad asks about how my day was, or when my best friend brings me a pig cookie she saw in a coffee shop because it reminded her of me. It's being in love that I'm unsure of. From the outside, most real romantic relationships I see with my friends and family could go either way. I see the mundane things, hardships, as well as mushy, lovey-dovey nonsense. But all I can really do is speculate, as an observer, how it really actually feels. I don't know what's performative, and I don't know what's real. I've only been on 2.5 dates in my life, don't ask about the half, and they were mostly just awkward and scary. I've had my fair share of crushes, but I don't know that I would call that being in love. Those relationships never even dawdled into situationships. Most of the time, we weren't even friends. I was pining after someone who basically only existed in my imagination. So when I listen to love songs or watch rom-coms, I'm left to wonder, is this like Narnia levels of unreality or Saving Private Ryan levels of unreality? Because I know it's art, it's heightened to some extent, but what extent? And sometimes it's like, yeah, whatever, who cares? And sometimes the not knowing, it makes me feel broken, isolated. Like there's some part of the human experience I'm missing out on. Some inside joke everyone else can reference that I'll never get. So I should just get into a relationship, right? Put myself out there, problem solved. Which, man, what a great idea. Can't believe I never thought of that before. And, with the internet, we're more connected than ever, so it should be easier than ever, right? Just go on a dating app. That's what they're there for, right? Did you know that 80% of couples met on dating apps? Probably not, because I just made that up. Apparently it's more like 30% according to this article I found after 2 minutes of Google searching. But even that feels strange, doesn't it? I mean, have you guys used dating apps? They're freaking useless, dude. How is anyone meeting anyone that way? Like, you go through the whole rigmarole of making a profile, answering like 2,000 personality questions, picking out pictures, trying to figure out how to answer prompts in a way that's both accurate to your personality and also leaves the door open for conversation. And then you reach the actual app and you either like every single person you come across, hoping for just one match, or you swipe through an endless sea of people who have at least one deal breaker that you can't filter out because you have to buy premium to filter out people who want kids or smoke or whatever. And after a couple weeks of getting nowhere, you start to think that maybe all the people that you are attracted to do is eat hot chip and lie. And you start to feel desperate and unlikable. And you start to think, maybe premium might be worth it if it means that you get to message first or whatever. And that's the heart of it, isn't it? Dating apps hiding things behind a paywall. I mean, we all know it, right? Dating apps aren't non-profits, they're businesses. They need to make money. So the point of dating apps is not actually to help you find the one. The point is to turn a profit for shareholders. And the way that they do that is by getting you to subscribe for their premium or pro or platinum or whatever. And the way they do that is by making the app annoying or useless without it. Like you can't message people first, or like more than 10 people a day, or filter out smokers, or send super likes, or see who likes you without paying. A lot. It's actually not to their benefit to be an app that's designed to be deleted. More like an app that's designed to be addicting. But, really, isn't that every app? But they all have their own unique take on addiction. And for dating apps, their take is to prey on lonely, desperate, frustrated people. Pay us $20 a month and maybe someone will finally notice you. Maybe if you send out enough super likes, the hole in your heart will finally be filled. If we boost your profile, then those stupid, arrogant females won't be able to ignore you. They'll just have to give the nice guy a chance. Isn't $300 a year a small price to pay for eternal happiness? Because that's what a relationship is, right? Happiness, fulfillment, completion. I was never truly myself until my other half came along. I was broken, deprived, unfinished. That's the message we get. And the thing about this message is that it spans groups of all kinds. Political, religious, fandom-related, you name it. Like, it's hard to connect with your local church as a single young adult when everything is family-oriented. Your relatives ask if you've met anyone when you see them during the holidays. People in online spaces don't seem to know how to engage with a work of fiction if they can't ship people in it. Everyone loves a love story, and everyone pities the spinster, the crazy cat lady, the 40-year-old virgin. Or maybe everyone laughs at them. The farther you get into adulthood without being in a relationship, or worse, without ever having been in one, the less people seem to know what to do with you. And the less the world seems built to handle you. It's difficult to pay rent with only one income, and it seems like a pipe dream to try and buy a house with one. Being single means you have to make everyday big decisions alone, which is easier in some ways and much more difficult in others. It means if you have to move across the country for work, you have to do so alone. It means not always having an emergency contact. It probably means not being anyone's top priority. And where can you even look for examples on how to navigate all of this? Maybe you're lucky enough to know someone in your personal life who's dealt with this, but I don't. And I struggle to think of any main characters in media I've seen who managed to even avoid a romantic subplot, let alone actively navigated life without a partner as part of their story. It makes you feel like you're dealing with something incredibly rare, even though it really isn't. I mean, as a society, we are so utterly unprepared for dealing with life without a romantic partner that we have inadvertently spawned an entire subset of men who are so furious with their involuntary celibacy that they flock to violently misogynistic groups online. And there they learn to blame everything on stuck-up women or their canthal tilt or the fact that they're not Sigma enough. Because the fact that they haven't had sex is an injustice. They're being blocked from the best part of being a person just because females these days are too independent. If they could just get into a relationship, then all their problems would go away. Then they would finally be happy. If I could just find my other half, my soulmate, and everything would be okay. Because I can't rely on my friends or my family the way that I could a partner. Now, not every single person is going to end up an incel, obviously, especially if you have a good support system. But having loving friends and family doesn't always drive away the itch. I, for one, thank God so much for the people that I am lucky enough to have in my life. And I try to be content with that. Because there are people who don't even have that much. There were times when I felt like I didn't. And then sometimes there are days like my younger sister's 21st birthday. We went out to eat. Me, my parents, my older sister and her husband, and my younger sister and her boyfriend. The 7 of us. The restaurant we went to was packed, so they sat us at a booth meant for 6 people. And the waiter put a chair at the end of the table. And I took the chair because, it felt right. And I remember looking at the 6 of them in that booth from my wobbly, sticky little chair and just feeling this divide between us. Like I was 7th wheeling. And they didn't do anything to make me feel excluded or like they didn't care. I chose that seat. But I couldn't help but wonder if the number in our family was always going to be odd. If we'd ever have to bust another chair out of the basement for our dining room table, or if 7 would always be enough. Now, it's probably good practice to talk to the people in your life when you're thinking about stuff like that. But, vulnerability is scary, and also, people aren't always equipped to know what to say to you. If you're young, like me, in your 20s, people tend to default to telling you that, you still have time. They say, you're so young, you have your whole life ahead of you. Yeah, everyone in your personal life is falling in love and getting married and buying a house, and you haven't even had a first kiss or a real career. But you have so much time. And maybe, statistically, that's true. But knowing that doesn't immediately erase the loneliness. The fear that this might not be a season or a phase. That it might be emblematic of what the rest of your life is going to be like. That this is not a brief fluke. It's forever. I mean, if we're talking statistics, statistically, some people never get married. So, what if that's me? And even if it's not, even if I do find someone someday, that doesn't immediately undo all of my life experiences, or lack thereof, up to that point. There are still so many things that I don't understand, can't understand, that I didn't have the chance to learn. Things that all my peers learned in high school and college. Ways to navigate relationships, what it even means to be in one, or what one that's healthy looks like. So if I do get into a relationship, chances are I'll be at a significant disadvantage. I'll be inexperienced, floundering to understand what a romantic relationship even really means. What if it takes so long for me to find someone that a bunch of me gets twisted up inside with fear and loneliness, and I just can't be in a healthy relationship? 2 of the 2.5 dates that I have been on were with a guy that I met on a dating app. The same guy both times, so obviously it wasn't a total disaster. In fact, he was nice. We got along fine. Now, obviously, it didn't work out, but that's really just because of me. Because I realized I couldn't handle it. The stress of going on dates with a stranger. I'm autistic, so navigating unfamiliar social environments is basically a living nightmare. I felt fine enough on the actual dates, but I get home and feel so exhausted and anxious about doing it again. My younger sister told me she didn't want her first date with her now boyfriend to end. At the beginning of our second date, the guy told me he'd been looking forward to it all week, and I felt bad because I had been worried about it all week. It made me feel weird, broken. This was the first time I had the opportunity to actually date someone who had explicitly told me they were interested. It was everything I had been waiting for, and now I didn't want it. Now I was thinking it was all too much. I realized I didn't think I could do the whole dating thing through an app. I would never be comfortable enough around a stranger I met online to actually know if I was developing feelings, whatever that feels like. The one time the app actually did what it promised, and it still ended up being useless for me. But meeting someone in real life sometimes feels even more unlikely than a match on a dating app actually even going anywhere. It isn't, I know that. That's how everyone I know got into a relationship. None of them met on a dating app. But, as I've said, I've never even gotten close to a relationship with someone I've known in real life. And stuff like that, it makes you wonder why. I've spent a lot of time wondering why it hasn't happened for me yet. What's so different about me that my siblings and friends can all find someone, but I can't? Sometimes the thought that I might be unlovable, or repulsive, or too picky, or boring, or just wrong crawls into my head, stinking up the place like a dying dog crawling underneath my porch. But it doesn't die. It just lingers, rotting more with every breath. Because isn't falling in love a part of growing up? I had some kind of mental list as a kid of all the things I had to do to grow up. Go to middle school, go to high school, join the big kids and youth group, graduate and go to college, fall in love, graduate and get married, start a career, have kids, buy a house. Once you do all that, life begins in all its glorious routine. I thought all of those things were as guaranteed to happen as the sunrise or getting older every birthday. I don't know when all those guarantees started sliding through my fingers, or maybe when I noticed they were never even there to begin with. But I don't look out for them the way I used to. I don't hang my hopes on them when I come home at night. And how do you grieve that? Is that even the right word? Can you grieve a dream? Especially if technically it could still happen at any point in your life. When do you let it die? Sit down with loss and face it. And what if doing that is a self-fulfilling prophecy? What if letting go makes it true? A common greatest fear is dying alone. The idea of growing into old age and finding yourself without any deep relationships is almost instinctively unpleasant. We weren't made to be alone. Something that often exacerbates that fear is feeling like you aren't having any luck in love. Because often the person who sticks with you the longest is meant to be your spouse. Friends come and go, family moves away, children grow up. but the dream is dying hand in hand with your lover, having grown old together. That's the classic image, right? Husband and wife lying together and at peace, going quietly into that good night. The phrase, "I want to grow old with you," is considered deeply romantic. But, I mean, isn't it possible to grow old with someone you love platonically? Does romance have to be the only way? People assume that the be-all, end-all of love is romantic, that love has levels, and the greater your affection for someone grows, the deeper it moves towards romance. First you have strangers, then acquaintances, then friends, then best friends, then family, and then lovers. So the most you can love someone platonically is to consider them like family. And that will always fall short of the love for a romantic partner. That's a big part of shipping culture, I think. When two characters are shown to have a very deep connection, to love and respect each other fiercely, to put the other person first, then they have to want to smooch each other. Look at the depth of their affection. There is no platonic explanation for that. Why? Why not? We think that love maxes out at the romantic level. Yet, greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. The key word there for this particular discussion being friends. Love, true, deep, fulfilling love, has absolutely nothing to do with sex or romance. The idea that you're missing out on what love truly is, or on the greatest expression of it, just because you've never been in a romantic relationship is insane. It's harmful. And so wrong. And yet, it is so prevalent. And all of this is just so frustrating. It's frustrating to feel pressure from society, from the people around you, from the dreams you've carried since childhood. It's frustrating to try your hardest and get nowhere. It's frustrating to know you'd be better off just letting it go and not being able to. And it's important to acknowledge that frustration and the fear and the loneliness. Pretending it isn't there isn't going to help anything. But at the same time, that can't be where the solution ends. You can't just wallow in those negative feelings. Because as much as it sometimes doesn't feel like it, it is still entirely possible to have a satisfying, happy, and fulfilling life without a romantic partner. Which, of course, that's easy to say, but it's hard to believe. And even harder to know what that would even look like, or how you would even get there. So let's talk about it. Now, there are a few things to consider with this. Like what it even means to be satisfied, happy, or fulfilled. And to be honest, that is a question that doesn't even really have anything to do with romance. You can be in a romantic relationship and be deeply unhappy. How to be happy is a much broader question, with a much broader answer than just being in a relationship. I mean, of course, that's just my opinion. Some people might think that the key to happiness is a romantic relationship, and that singleness is the worst state a person can be in. If that's you, I hope that you reconsider. Because a spouse is never going to be able to hold up under the pressure of maintaining your happiness and inner peace. In fact, you're probably going to destroy the relationship if that's how you're approaching it. I would say that God is the source of joy and peace. And having a relationship with Him doesn't have anything to do with having a romantic relationship. So that's how I'm approaching this question of how can you be happy without ever having a romantic partner? As with all things, my worldview is going to impact the advice I give. So if your worldview differs from mine, you'll need to examine where you think happiness comes from and what that means for your answer to that question. And that's a good exercise to do anyway, examining your worldview. It is shockingly easy to be unaware of the standards that you actually hold yourself and others to. But we're getting off topic, so let's reel it back in. There are 4 sort of suggestions that I'm going to make. But take this whole section with a grain of salt, because, hey man, I'm 23. I don't know what's going on. First of all, it's always good to take time to be grateful for the things that you do have. It is so easy to spend all day thinking about how desperately you want a partner, or a new car, or whatever new skincare garbage or protein snack TikTok is desperately trying to sell you. But taking time often, even daily, to list out or ponder all the things that you have to be grateful for has actually been shown to improve mental health. Not even just related to struggling with being single. Although, if we are talking about that specifically, it is good to remind yourself of the people in your life that you love. I, for one, as I said, am so grateful that I have the family I do, and that we're as close as we are. So, that intentional move towards gratefulness can look like a ton of different things. It can look like the therapy homework type of thing of writing out a list every day, or it can be just adding it to your prayers, or just taking a moment when you're with someone to remind yourself how glad you are that they're in your life. Now, this next point is kind of related to that, but it's good sometimes to just remind yourself of the nice parts of being single. Because being single does have its advantages, despite what media propaganda is trying to tell you. It's more peaceful and simpler. You don't have to figure out how to fit the puzzle pieces of your life around the complicated puzzle of someone else's. You don't have to worry about betrayal or heartbreak in the same way. You have more emotional energy to put towards other things. That's why Paul said in 1 Corinthians 7 that it's good to remain unmarried, if you're able to, and that's what the Lord calls you to. Because someone who is unmarried is anxious about things of the Lord, how to please the Lord. But someone who is married is anxious about worldly things, how to please their spouse. Their interests are divided. Being single frees your mind from the worries that come with being in a relationship. Of course, like I've been saying this whole video, there are a lot of things in life that can be much harder if you don't have a partner. Logistical and legal things, as well as everyday life things. That can be scary and frustrating. I won't deny that. But we should also remember that more difficult doesn't mean impossible. Growing up with undiagnosed autism as well as severe social anxiety, which maybe those two things are related, I don't know, I'm not a psychiatrist, but growing up that way meant that I was very afraid of doing things alone. I did basically everything with at least one of my sisters. Playdates, birthday parties, school, didn't matter where I was going. I didn't want to go alone. I didn't trust myself. Usually that meant I tried to finagle one of my sisters into carrying all the social weight for me. So, not the healthiest thing in the world. Then, surprise, surprise, when we got older and it stopped making sense for my sisters and I to be joined at the hip, I had a hard time adjusting. I didn't trust myself to be capable of handling situations even as mundane as going to the store by myself. And I stopped myself from doing a lot of things that I would have enjoyed because there was no one available to do them with me. So when I thought about potentially having to navigate the majority of my adult life alone, it seemed pretty bleak. Maybe you can relate to that, maybe you can't. Maybe you're an independent little bee without a socially anxious bone in your body, in which case I applaud your skeletal structure. Regardless, over the past year, I've taken some small steps towards learning how to do those things alone. I started with small life things, like going to the store alone. But more and more these days, I've tried to push myself to do things I enjoy alone. Going for walks, to the library, to movies, to museums. I started realizing I didn't want to wait for a partner to start living. I didn't want to wither away, tucked safely in my room, hoping for something that might not even happen. I guess what I'm trying to say with this part is don't wait. Learn to be comfortable and content doing things alone. Things that you have to do, but also things that you love to do. That'll be a valuable frame of mind to have even if you do meet someone someday. But it's hard though, isn't it? To temper these things with if. If I meet someone, if it works out. We all much prefer the safety of when I get married, when I have kids. Which, that's true for everything. As soon as we add something to our mental calendar, we've accepted it as an inevitability. So when you add meet future husband in college and get married the summer we graduate to your calendar, and then it doesn't happen, it's, not so pleasant. Man plans and God laughs, as they say. But that's something else it could benefit us to accept. That you have no control over when or even if you'll get married. You can do it all right. Be hot and funny and smart and charming and confident. Meet lots of people, go on all the dating apps, maybe even go on lots of dates. And it still might never work out. You can't make it happen. No amount of will or confidence or manifestation can force the universe to give you a partner. And by the universe, I mean God. That's a hard thing to accept. I know I don't like feeling not in control, but I'm not. And listen, we will drive ourselves insane trying to be. So, just some food for thought. Now, I can't sit here and pretend I've mastered all of this, that everything is all good for me now, that I'm so totally over it after just following XYZ steps to #power through it. There will be days when I'm totally fine, and then I see a video of someone trying on wedding dresses, and I'm hit with a sudden wave of grief, and longing, and fear. I can go days without it even crossing my mind, and I can go days fighting to keep it out of my thoughts. And I don't think that longing is ever gonna fully go away. But it is easier now than it used to be. In small ways, in small moments. And maybe easier isn't the right word. People say, it gets easier, and I hear that as it being a circumstantial change, that your situation gets easier. That's not what I'm trying to say. My situation is the same. It's my perspective that's changing. Slowly. So slowly that it can be frustrating, but still. I think about talking to myself from 5 years ago, a freshman in college, so scared and desperate for love. If I told her being single gets easier, I don't think she'd find that very comforting. I think she'd worry that I had become complacent in my loneliness. But I'm not. I'm not working towards complacency. I'm working towards contentment. I mentioned earlier that it can be difficult sometimes to find examples of single people who live content, happy, fulfilled lives. which makes you feel like you're missing out on some basic part of the human experience that you haven't really lived until you've fallen in love or slept with someone or gotten married. But I think it's important to remind us, specifically my fellow Christians in the audience, that there is a very great example of someone who never married for us to follow. Jesus. We wouldn't say that he missed out on a core part of being human or didn't live a fulfilling life because he was never in a romantic relationship. Not unless you want to do a heresy, I guess. I'm trying to say that the status of your love life does not make you broken or incomplete. You can still experience the utter fullness and depth of love without a drop of romance. Because what is love? Is it the flames of passion, the pull of attraction? Is it the morning sun or the pouring rain? Is it something hidden within the depths of romance? Or is it laying your life down for your friend? Is it patient and kind? Is it the sort of thing that is not envious or boastful, not arrogant or rude, that does not insist on its own way, is not irritable or resentful, that does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with truth? Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. That doesn't sound like the sort of thing that's limited to romance. And is open to you, right now, available to you, ripe for the taking. And I don't just mean with your friends and family, though they can love you very well. I mean the true, actual heights of love, the source of love. Because, listen, not to get all preachy or whatever, but if we're talking about passages about love, I like 1 Corinthians 13 as much as the next sap. I literally just quoted it. But my favorite passage has to be the end of 1 John 4. For love is from God, and everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. The one who does not love does not know God, because God is love. By this the love of God was revealed in us, that God sent his only Son into the world, so that we may live through him. In this is love, not that we loved God, but that he loved us, and sent his Son to be the propitiation for our sins. Or, as verse 19 puts it, we love because he first loved us. So, maybe that's some hope to cling to. Well, anyway, y'all see that Stranger Things finale? Crazy, right?